Alright, this is Bible Basics Part 2. Let's get into it. A Bible means simply just book or library or paper scroll. The oldest complete copy is a text from the Vatican, and it is called the Codex Vaticanicus. Codex just means book. There are several original complete copies. By several original complete copies, I mean there's about 4. Okay, and the complete copies are the Hebrew Tanakh, which is the Old Testament, the Greek Septuagint, the Latin Vulgate, and the Coptic. Okay, and the Masoretic text, which is the Hebrew, can date as far back as the 9th or 10th century AD. There are no texts before that point. So if you want to know how far back these stories go, the furthest back you can go is to the 10th century AD. You go back before that, there are no Hebrew texts. There is no Bible before that period. Just understand that. Okay? Judaism is not the world's oldest religion. Christianity is not the world's oldest religion. So get that idea right out of your head just to start with. Okay, the Tanakh, which is the Old Testament, is the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim, which is basically the law, the histories, and the writings. Okay, and there is also an oral tradition called the Talmud. Now, the genres in the Bible, because there are different genres. So if you're going to approach the book, you need to understand what genre you're talking about. So you have mythology, laws, prophetic books, poetry, philosophy, prophecy, which is also sometimes called apocalyptic, history, and you also have letters. So just to understand that those are the different genres in the Bible. And sometimes the histories will be called gospels, and gospels are more like lives, so they're biographies. What are the original languages of the Bible? The original languages that were spoken by the people in the Bible are Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. Those are the languages of the people in the Bible. Now, the neighboring cultures all had their own language. So the Mesopotamians had their own language, the Egyptians had their own language. So understand that there are different languages in that period, in that area, in those times. The original churches were Catholic, and the original church fathers were Catholic. So, right there, you got to understand, the original Christian churches, or Catholic churches, the original church fathers, every single church father, if they're considered a church father, or even the church mothers, were Catholic. The schism doesn't happen until long after, and the Protestant Reformation doesn't happen until way after. Okay? So from 33 to 1500, it's all Catholic Church. Okay? That doesn't mean that there was only Catholic religions. There were other religions. And that doesn't mean that there was only Catholic Christianity. There is also a thing called Gnosticism. But Gnosticism doesn't use our Bibles. Okay? Gnostics have a completely different set of texts than ours. So, the religion that we're following, if we're reading the Bible as we understand it, that's going to be Christianity, not Gnosticism. So what are the other churches then? The Roman Latin Church, the Greek Orthodox Church, the Coptic Church, and the Ethiopian Church. Sometimes some of these are called the Eastern Rites. Okay? Now, understand that this is pre-schism. Once the schism happens, there are way more. And then after that happens, and then the next great schism, which will be the Protestant Reformation, then you get more denominations. Understand that it starts off as one church, becomes 2, that becomes 4, that becomes a whole bunch. Now, there are other religions outside of Christianity that existed at that time. Zoroastrianism, paganism, and by the way, paganism is not a religion. Okay, there are different pantheons, and different gods and goddesses that are worshipped in different pantheons and in different cultures. So you have a Canaanite type style religion, you have a Roman style religion, you have a Hellenistic style religion, and in those religions you will then have different gods and goddesses worshipped, and sometimes you might have a patron god or goddess, and so you do the practices of that god or goddess. You wouldn't necessarily do the practices of the entire community unless you were part of a larger sect. Okay, so cults and sects and all of that have different religions, and sometimes you might be just dedicated to one god, sometimes you might dedicate your life to serving all the gods. It just depends. A little misconception about paganism and heathenism that happens when Christians talk about any paganistic religion. The oldest text in the Bible can be sourced back to 300 BC. That's it. So even though there are historical, archaeological, and textual ways to take the dating back to 1000 BC, the oldest text you're going to find is around 300 BC. So just understand that our oldest sources come from 300 BC, not before that. Our oldest inference of the biblical text is 1000 BC. So, King David on, we have the Old Testament. But we don't have any proof of those, we don't have any sources until about 300 BC, when we start getting fragments and copies. Alright, so I will see you in the next video.